Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
And it's a Thursday morning. It's August 28, 2025, and we're coming to you from the 2025 EWTN Catholic Radio Conference in McLean, Virginia, of course, in the area of Washington, D.C. Our radio affiliates and hosts, we're all here this week to learn how we can make Catholic radio even better for you, our Catholic radio family. And we're also here for the big EWTN family celebration on Saturday, which will also be live on EWTN radio. And if you're listening on an AM/FM station, we encourage you to prayerfully support their efforts to spread the eternal word, because as Father Mitch says, and as Mother Angelica says, you have to keep us in between your gas and your electric bills. And we all work together to bring you 24/7 Catholic radio across the nation and around the globe. Now, this is a very exciting day here for us at the radio conference. Our wonderful Dr. Matthew Bunson is going to be speaking for a keynote this morning, but we also are coming to you on a somber day. On a somber day after a horrible shooting that was occurring right about this time yesterday in the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis. And we now know that 2 children were killed. 17 other people were injured. This is at Annunciation Parish and School. The children were at the opening mass, and a gunman who had attended the school, a transgender, a man identifying as a woman, came dressed in black and shot through the windows. And as I mentioned, 2 children were killed, 17 people hurt. So the Archbishop has put out a very, very strong and beautiful statement, but there's some interesting developments, and we'll talk about that with my dear friend, and of course you know him well from his great work at EWTN Catholic Radio, his many books, his pilgrimages in the Archdiocese of Minneapolis-St. Paul, Jeff Cavins. Jeff, I know this is a tough day for you, and yesterday must have been just horrific. How are you doing? Because this is really hitting so close to home for you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, Teresa. Of course, to be, better with different circumstances. But
right.
Yeah, yesterday I would say was an exhausting day for Minnesota people in general, but certainly for Catholics. And I remember saying to my wife last night before we retired, I said, I'm spent. I'm just spent.
Yeah. So I know that talking to several of our mutual friends in Minneapolis, you're very familiar with the parish and also with the priest there. Tell us a little bit about the people at Annunciation.
Yeah. Well, Annunciation is one of those beautiful parishes that's really nestled into the heart of Minneapolis. It's an old parish. I went there as a grade school student. And my favorite priest of all time was Bishop Dudley, and he was a pastor there. And it's just the heart of the Catholic community. It really is, and it's the heart of Catholic education. There's so many different Catholic elementary schools and high schools in the area, and it really struck at the heart of the city. It really did. And so I was surprised. I guess I wasn't surprised, but I was hit with the impact it had on the whole country. You hear about these things here and there, but there was something about yesterday, and I think that something is that there were children. It was during Mass. Mm-hmm. It was actually during Mass that this happened, and I think that's what struck the heart of so many around the country, and around the world, actually. I received a lot of texts and emails from friends around the world saying, we're remembering you. Not me, but I mean the people of Minneapolis.
Right. Talking with Jeff Cavins. Of course, you know him well from his great work in pilgrimage and his scripture study on Ascension Press. So many books, so many great programs on our own network, EWTN. And, of course, he is a scripture scholar and also a teacher in the Archdiocese of Minneapolis-St. Paul, working with my dear friend Kelly Walquist at the Catechetical Institute. Jeff, I've covered so many of these shootings in my history as a reporter. You know my background. And
right.
It's really, really hard to make sense out of any of this. You really can't. But you're also someone who talks a lot about suffering, and you've written a book about suffering. What do we say to people? Because this is where the rubber meets the road with our faith. You saw the people, and the one story, I'm sure you heard the story about the little boy who was talking about his friend who jumped on top of him and then was shot. I don't know what condition that little boy is in, but the boy was talking about how brave his friend was. But how do we explain the faith when it comes to suffering?
Well, the interesting thing, Teresa, about about the school and the theme of the school that year. As you know, many schools will come up with a theme for that new academic year. And this one was Jeremiah 29, for I know the plans I have for you,
says the Lord. I love that verse. It's my husband's favorite verse.
The plans declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. And the second day of school, this happens. I think that we're all called to pick up our cross and follow him. And that's not a trite statement. That's not a statement that covers pain. It's a statement of reality that we are called to pick up our cross, and we may be targeted from time to time at various levels, whether it be someone angry with us or someone shunning us, or something like yesterday where someone is very angry with Catholics or with African Americans or Jews. And what happened at the school really brings in this whole issue of redemptive suffering, that right there in the sacrifice of the Mass, someone died. A child died. People were shot. People were traumatized. And the cross itself is trauma. The cross itself is love in action. And so it's not the time really to talk about it right now because it's so fresh. It's so painful. But there will be opportunities for everyone connected with this to offer up their suffering in union with Christ, and good can come out of it. These children's lives mean something. The suffering of the students, the faculty, teachers, the administration, it means something. It means something to everybody who shed tears over this yesterday, that they can offer this up, and good can come out of it. And, love triumphs over evil, and love dispels fear. It does. And so I think that there is a response to this, but it certainly is not a Hallmark theology response at this point.
I'm looking at Catholic News Agency's story this morning, Jeff, with your wonderful Archbishop Hebda, who's such a good man. He worked in Michigan at the Diocese of Gaylord there as a bishop, and I got to know him when he was in my home state. But let me read a little bit of this story. I know you've probably seen this statement already. Archbishop Reinhardt Hebda, who leads the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, releasing a statement following the deadly shooting that took place yesterday morning at Annunciation Catholic School in southern Minneapolis. My heart is broken as I think about students, teachers, clergy, and parishioners and the horror they witnessed in a church, a place where we should feel safe. He released a statement hours after police confirmed that 2 children were killed. He expressed gratitude to Pope Leo, who also issued a statement, who sent his condolences to Hebda after the attack, and all those around the world who have offered prayers following the shooting. He says, I beg for the continued prayers of all the priests and faithful of this archdiocese, as well as for the prayers of all men and women of goodwill. Hebda continued that the healing that only God can bring will be poured out on all those who were present at this morning's Mass, talking about yesterday morning, of course, and particularly for the affected families who are only now beginning to comprehend, and you mentioned this, Jeff, the trauma they sustained. What I thought was very interesting in doing some research this morning and last night for our interview today, Jeff, is that the Minneapolis Catholic Conference had approached the state asking for support for security. I'm narrowing the story down because it's quite detailed. And they were ignored or rebuffed. And yet they gave money to public schools, but they would not do the same for the Catholic and other private schools. And I'm hoping, do you think this is raising awareness, maybe even more about the lack of support for Catholics and other Christians in these areas? What do you think?
Well, I think that, Catholics pay taxes, Lutherans pay taxes, Baptists do, and so do atheists, Everybody pays taxes in this state, and everybody has children in this state. And I think when it comes to protecting our children, that's something that we do, we should be doing as Minnesotans, as Texans, as Floridians, simply because they are citizens of the state. And to think that if somebody's Catholic or some other type of school, we're not going to do that. I think that doesn't really speak of who we really are. Yeah. So I don't know the details of that, but I know I pay taxes.
Well, but I think it's important, and also I think it's important that the head of the FBI said this is going to be listed as an anti-Catholic hate crime, and that has to be recognized. I was watching Fox News this morning getting ready to come down here, and I saw Jonathan Morris on air saying that whether it's anti-Christian, anti-Jewish, it has to be called out for what it is. And so I was glad to see the administration say that, because this is a religious hate crime. And it's so sad because this young man, from what I understand, spent time at this school. And I'm going to talk to Dr. Ray Guarendi a little bit about this. But did you notice in the manifesto, Jeff, and I think, and you understand the culture so well and help people deal with it from a Catholic perspective, he said, "The world corrupted me." That line jumped out at me in that manifesto. The world corrupted me.
Yeah, I heard that myself, and that it definitely sounded like this young person, this Robert, who now identifies as Robin, was conflicted in a lot of different ways, and was struggling deeply, and his message didn't make a lot of sense, but that phrase popped out at me too, and that is that the world has impacted me, and what I've been marinating in for the last number of years has come to fruition, and this is what I'm going to do now. And that's going to be studied for some time now, and I think everybody, in the last 5 years needs to take a look at what they say publicly and rhetoric, and bringing criticism and discussion to an unhealthy level that's affecting people that they don't know they're affecting at that moment.
I also think that it has to be studied, and again, Dr. Ray will address this from a psychological perspective and the impact of some of these drugs that these people are taking to do the so-called transitioning, which, of course, we never know can completely happen because you can't change your DNA. But there has to be more about these drugs that are so harmful and what they do to people, because normally, I was talking to another reporter friend of mine yesterday, normally in addition to the puberty blockers, because of what they do to a person, they have to put them on antidepressants. So you've got a combination of all kinds of issues with these medications. And so to me, this affirms again and again the church teaching on who we are, made in the image and likeness of God, that you cannot be messing around with this.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. One of the things that struck me, Teresa, is I had an opportunity to talk to people that are, that don't want to be identified at this point, and it'll come out at some point. But the heroic virtue of these teachers and students, when the whole thing went down, people found out who they were. They found out who they were, and like this young boy you mentioned, there were heroes, and I don't think that just happened. I think that was a part of their upbringing. I think that was part of the faith. I think that was part of what it means to love, that it has been ingrained in them. And when those first shots rang out, people immediately began to love. They began to love right away. And I can't speak well enough, for these students, but the principal of the school too, the talk he gave afterwards, was so beautiful. And I mean, if one thing happened for me during this, it was my deep pride in being Catholic and our education and what it's meant to these students. But the shots rang out during the responsorial psalm.
Oh my gosh!
You have searched me, and you know me.
Yeah, we were in Mass yesterday, and I heard that same, of course, obviously the same responsorial psalm. Just a reminder. Jeff, thank you so much. Jeff Cavins, a native of Minneapolis, and talking to many people there on the ground and talking with us, and we appreciate it. He's been very busy doing interviews, and we're glad you're out there, Jeff, with your perspective, which is always so true and beautiful from a truly Catholic perspective. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Catholic Connection on a Thursday morning. It's a feast of St. Augustine of Hippo. Our hearts are restless until we rest in thee, O Lord. One of my favorite saints. Oh, my goodness. We are here in Virginia, across the river, of course, from our nation's capital, and the conference is going extremely well. Our dear friend, our own EWTN, Matthew Bunson, Dr. Matthew Bunson, our keynote speaker this morning, and I was able to hang with Matthew a little bit yesterday and did an interview with him for Register Radio, which is going to air on Saturday, talking about the radio conference and also talking about our upcoming pilgrimage in 2026 and the footsteps of the popes. But our hearts are heavy this morning, and we continue our program to talk about, because we always give you the world through a Catholic perspective, a Catholic lens, which is the most important lens because it's a fullness of truth. But we wanted to, of course, focus on what happened yesterday in the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, because, of course, it's still all over the news. But it struck us because this happened at a Catholic school and a Catholic church. Not that we wouldn't cover it if it didn't, but this hits extremely close to home. And that's why I wanted to bring my dear friend. And we are good friends, okay? Just let me put this out there. We tease each other constantly, but we're like the brother and sister in the back of the seat arguing and pinching each other. Ma, she touched me, he touched me. But we're good friends, and we tease each other because we love each other. But I'm such a fan of his work and his common sense approach to psychology. He's a wonderful counselor, radio host, of course, here on EWTN. And you were one of the first people next to Jeff Cavins. You and Jeff came to mind when I heard about this shooting. And I asked Jeff the question, and he addressed it a little bit, but I wanted to dive in more deeply with you, Ray. We're seeing, and this isn't the only shooting that's happened with someone who was transitioning. What are your thoughts, just from a psychological perspective, on what we're seeing? Because there are manifestos out, and there was a video. Now YouTube took it down, but people copied it before they took it down, so they were able to transcribe and get most of what he was saying. What are your thoughts, knowing what we know about the suspect so far?
In all of human history, T, what shaped you was your family, your clan, your tribe, maybe your village. That's who shaped you. Well, we're now in a sliver of human history where you can be shaped by the world. And if you're susceptible to all of this input is incredible. For example, several factors at play. What's this guy, 23?
Yeah, early 20s.
23.
Yeah.
So he's part of that 40% no religion. Now, I don't know personally what he was, but if you're going to make a baseline guess, there's a close to 50-50 chance that God is not part of his life. Mm-hmm. Or if he is, he's just neglected.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you immediately enter that confusion. How do I make my own way? You got the voices of the world telling you, no, this is how you need to think, and this is how hostile you need to get. You got to get angry. You got to get mad because people don't disagree with you. They're evil. I had a call yesterday on the radio where a guy basically said one of our political figures was just flat out evil.
Wow.
Yeah. As a shrink, when people are vulnerable and susceptible to confusion, to influence, they are much more likely to follow where the strain of violence is taking them. And what is there, T, to stop them? If you think about it, okay, he killed himself. So it'd be probably safe to speculate he's got this nihilistic view of life, which is, what's that matter? I'm going to go down in a ball of flame here, and so what? When I kill myself, it's all over. I don't answer to anybody or anything.
Right.
The other thing is this. Okay, he admitted some confusion regarding his gender. Mm-hmm. You could speculate, and again, individually, I don't know. But if you're just predicting from a broad base, if you have confusion as to who you are, where's that confusion going to spread? What's life? Mm-hmm. What's meaning? What's it all about, Alfie?
Right.
And when you are swimming in that kind of cognitive muck, it doesn't shock me that people can create this. You'll hear people say, well, you have to be mentally ill to do something like that. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can be misshapen.
Right. Or you could snap from pressure, or, it could be a crime of passion, right? I mean, that's happened before. I've covered many cases like that, right?
Could be, but it seems like, given I didn't read the manifesto, but it seems like there was just a percolating ball of confusion in this young person.
He was saying that, but he also, again, that line, corrupted by the world, is what really struck me. And I asked that about Jeff. What do you think about that? It goes to what you were saying earlier about all the outside influences. He said he told his parents, it wasn't you, it was me, I was corrupted by the world.
Question I would have, too, and I see this among parents a lot, they dramatically underestimate what is shaping their kid. Mm-hmm. I'll sit in my office, and there'll be a 17-year-old in there, and the parent will say, I don't know who that is. We didn't raise him that way. And I can say in some delicate way, I believe you, but you underestimated what did. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's happening, T. The galloping force of the cultural misshaping is ahead of most parents' ability to counter it or to even be aware of it.
Right.
So as a result, what's happening is this drip, 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 drip of the kids getting immersed in this stuff, and then one day they become a 22-year-old adult that wants nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with their parents, nothing to do with their parents' views on anything, and the parents will go, what happened? Well, you can't guarantee it's not going to happen, but you probably underestimated the forces that were doing it.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about that combined with some of these medications that he was on, apparently?
I think we got to study this a lot.
Okay.
There are those doctors who are saying, whoa, whoa, whoa here. You know, we're putting stuff into people that their cells are not able to handle. But you have to wonder what gives it its push. What is it? Is it money? Is it good intention, which is, well, if he thinks he's this way and he wants to change who he is sexually, then we have to respect that. But the irony on that is, we don't respect everything that kid would come in. If he came in with an eating disorder, I wouldn't say, well, okay, let's staple your stomach. Let's get you down to 52 pounds. So that when you look in that mirror, you can see exactly what's looking back at you, a 52-pound guy. We don't do that. So how is it that we selected this one to not explore?
Right. And I think, to me, when I see stories like this, and the fact that there was another, of course, there have been several of these shooters with or transgender situations going on, so-called transgender ideology, and this gender confusion. The drugs, though, have to have an impact. I mean, if you look at even antidepressants, or even if you look at some of the drugs they're giving these kids, these puberty blockers, there's warnings on these things. And nobody's talking about the combination. I mean, you're a psychologist. I don't know. It just seems to me that we're missing, that reporters are not looking at a big aspect of this story.
They are so caught up in the cultural narrative that says we cannot question what somebody says about their sexuality. That is an untouchable topic.
Yeah, but you have going on in Great Britain, you had a whole turnaround. Remember, they put a pause on the puberty blockers after that doctor who had her life threatened after she released the research, showing the problems with the puberty blockers, what was happening with the kids, that they weren't getting the psychological examinations that these people said that they were going to be doing to make sure that it wasn't some trauma or something that happened to them earlier in life, that they really did have gender dysphoria. None of that was going on. And so they had these whistleblowers that came in and were watching this. They were pro-trans, and they said, we thought this was a good thing. And then we saw how these kids were treated or mistreated. And they blew the whistle. And then a study came out. And so in Great Britain and other places in Europe, they put the pause on this. But here in the United States, we just seem to be going full throttle with this.
Bible talks about us as sheep. And I, as a shrink, as I've gotten older in this business, am realizing we can so easily be led. And we'll ignore facts. We'll ignore research. We'll ignore the stuff that the experts are supposed to be aware of. Mm-hmm. We'll ignore it. Because that narrative grabs a hold of us, and it takes forever to get rid of it. It doesn't fit. They've done studies where in the first 4 minutes of an interview, a mental health person will come to a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Anything after that counters that diagnosis, they either dampen or ignore. Anything that supports it, they'll latch onto. Mm. And I think that you're seeing that as a cultural phenomenon that until the medical people say, you know what, we got to really look at this in a broad way. Until that happens, all the lay people are going to go, well, like the experts are saying.
Mm-hmm. More with Dr. Ray Guarendi, live from the EWTN Catholic Radio Conference 2025 in McLean, Virginia, here on Catholic Connection. Stay tuned.
But how sad it is, for sure, not only for the families who are directly involved, but indeed for families everywhere who feel the threat that comes from an event, a tragedy like today's.
That's the Archbishop of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Archbishop Hebda, a wonderful man. Met him when he was working up in Michigan in the Diocese of Gaylord, and has been in that archdiocese for many, many years. And Ray, I guess the question I have for you as a Catholic psychologist, we're talking, of course, with Dr. Ray Guarendi, what do we do with this? What do we do with these? They keep happening, and we keep discussing them, and this is hitting very close to home for us because of the Catholic connection. But what do we do with this as Catholic Christians?
Somebody asked me once, do you think this is going to keep happening? I said, of course. Yes. The ingredients are all there. Push God to the side, give him a boot, have a media and an internet and Hollywood and entertainment that basically says, here's how you got to think. So what's happening is we're misshaping a lot of people's psyches. It's happening. Now, a couple of things. One, you either harden all targets. Flat out, everywhere you go, you're living in a situation where now, 45 years ago, you could simply walk up to the gate at an airport and meet the people coming off, and nobody checked you out, and you went on. That was only 2 generations ago. So this is how fast you can misshape a culture. It's how fast. You harden all targets, or you start to look at, I think, with the influence of Christians, because that's really where the groundswell is happening. You look at these forces that are shaping our kids, and you start to put some guardrails on them. You start to go into education and say, okay, quit hypersexualizing our 7-year-olds. You look at social media and you say, okay, first of all, we got to put some guidelines on this. Pornography. Oh, for heaven's sake, you know it, T. Every sex offender you talk to says, oh, gosh, yeah, I got juiced up on pornography.
Well, Ted Bundy was one of the first ones to talk about it.
Big one.
Yep.
So until we start looking at that as a society, see, what's happening right now is we want simple solutions.
Right. We want quick and simple solutions.
Take the gun out of that guy's hands. Well, that's not going to do it. Okay? So give me something that'll fix it right away quick, like the pill. Until society looks at itself and says, we're really gone in the wrong direction here. How can we make protective changes for our kids' adjustment? It's not a surprise that it's now epidemic that these 22-year-olds don't want to talk to their parents anymore because they don't like the way they were raised. It's no surprise because the culture told them, you were raised bad. These nutcase psychos, religious people that raised you, you can't relate to them anymore. They're toxic. And until we start looking at that, you know the irony too? My profession doesn't follow its own research. The research comes out and says, when you give God the boot, you start having all kinds of stuff happen to you psychologically. Depression, anxiety, misshapen lives. But my profession just says, keep going in that direction. We don't need to take a look at any of these forces.
In addition to the social media and the religious influences, what do you think about really standing up to the government for this and reminding them of the importance of God? I think this administration, not to get political, but is doing more than previous administrations in terms of protecting religious freedoms. And I was glad to see the FBI director come out and say this is an anti-Catholic hate crime. And if it happened at a synagogue, we should say it's an anti-Jewish hate crime. It's anti-Semitic, the same thing with Muslims, whomever. We have to call it. Don't we have to start calling things what they are?
We're finally getting away from the idea that if you say something that is unpopular according to the people who are the movers and shakers of how we think, you're going to get squashed. We're finally getting away with that. So somebody's standing above me. I don't know who
that's
this
Jack
is.
Williams, who's coming up next after you.
He just keeps going. I'm looking up there. His head is scraping the ceiling up there.
He's our next guest coming up on Catholic Connection. But what should we do in response to this as Christians concerned about it? Because everybody talks about it, and from a news cycle, it kind of drives me nuts because it's all over the news, and for a week, and then it dies down. And then if the suspect were still alive, if the gunman were still alive, we'd see the arraignment, we'd see the trial, and then it goes away. And then we just kind of get complacent again.
We got to be countercultural.
Yeah.
You can't. In the old days, you could have a foot in religion, you could have a foot in the culture. Well, you try that now, you're going to get a groin pull. So as Catholics, we've got to say, no, my kid is not going to get a phone at age 15. That's too early. Now, 1% of kids don't have a phone at age 15. All right. So if you're a Catholic parent, and you got to have the strength to stand against this now. Yeah. You truly do. The other thing I do is I try to engage people when they'll say things like, well, and I'll say, so how'd you come to that conclusion? What do you think about that? I want to get inside their head.
Right.
And what you find is that most people think in fragmented thoughts. They simply don't have a coherent strain of thought. And if you ask them to say it out loud, they can't.
Right.
That's when they get mad at you and don't want to talk anymore.
But they should be able to discuss it if they really believe that and they've done their homework. They should be able to have a conversation. But when they shut you down, that's when you know that they just want a monologue, not a dialogue, as I always say. To me, it's interesting that this is happening while we're here because the fact that we can talk about it, the fact that we can talk about the culture, and the fact that we can react as Catholics, I think affirms the need for Catholic radio to be countercultural, right, against everything else that's out there.
Countercultural used to be a bad word. Okay. 70 years ago, the culture was somewhat more along the same guidelines regarding morality than it is now. That's for certain. Now counterculture is going to become a moral rebellion, in a sense. Mm-hmm. And you realize the strength you have to have. Many of the parents in my office, my sole goal, they know what they want to do. They're afraid to do it.
Right.
They're afraid of the feedback, the pushback from their relatives. They're afraid of their kid hating their guts. And I tried to get them to say, you understand, this is the course you need to be on, and you can't guarantee the outcome. When I wrote my first book, I talked about parents being insecure and nervous because psychologically they were incorrect. Now I see it isn't so much psychological incorrectness, it's fear. If I don't somewhat go with the flow of the culture, I'm going to raise a resentful kid. I'm going to raise a kid that's going to puke up religion. Mm-hmm. I'm going to raise a sneaky kid. I'm going to raise a deceptive kid. I'm going to lose my relationship with my kid. They parent in fear. I always tell this to parents. If my kids go astray, and that's why I had 10, because if you bat,
so you feel your odds are better.
Yes,
right?
you bat 300,
yeah.
You're in the Hall of Fame. So
right.
I need 3 kids to turn out okay. If my kids go astray, I want to be able to say they had to go through me, not because I stepped aside and walked with the culture.
No, amen to that. Amen to that. I get so frustrated. I am glad to see some of these school districts banning the phones during the day. They take the phones away from the kids. And it's amazing to me that some of these teachers are still saying, we can't do that. We have to let them have their phones. And yet I've heard some other teachers say when they come back from lunch after they've been on their phone for 45 minutes, they said it's so hard to get these kids re-engaged in the education process because their minds are going crazy over what they just saw on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. So I think there's a little bit, the awareness is being raised, but I'm still amazed that people knowing what you and I know, I'm coming at it from the media perspective, you're coming at it from obviously a psychological perspective as a counselor, with all the studies, and many of these studies coming from liberal think tanks.
Yes.
Liberal think tanks.
Yes.
And they still don't, I think it's not in my backyard NIMBY type of thing, you think?
Somebody asked me, Al Kresta said this once. He said, when we have the evidence and the reason, why don't we change? And I said, Al, that's because we don't live by evidence and reason. We live by emotion and self-interest.
There you go. Bingo. Thank you, Ray, for your insights, my dear. My friend, Dr. Ray Guarendi, of course, you'll hear him this afternoon. He'll be live broadcasting his program as well. We are at the Catholic Radio Conference for EWTN Catholic Radio in McLean, Virginia. And Jack Williams from EWTN Radio is in the house, and he's going to...
I don't want to be his lead-in act.
Okay. He's coming up next. Stay tuned.
Getting the Frisbees and the beach balls gone.
Welcome back, Catholic Connection. We are live from the EWTN Catholic Radio Conference, and we first, of course, had our friend Jeff Cavins from the Archdiocese of Minneapolis giving us his perspective on the situation in the ground.
I didn't see him. Where was he?
He's in Minneapolis. You didn't see him because he wasn't physically here. He's in Minneapolis.
Got me all excited.
Yeah, he had some really interesting points of being there and knowing the priest at the parish, Ascension Parish, and the school. So heartbreaking. And then, of course, this guy Guarendi that we still have on the air here for some reason, I don't know, but he gave the psychological perspective. But I kept thinking when this story was breaking how important it is for us to have Catholic radio to talk about it.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. There's no more intimate, there's no more accessible means of communication. And I would posit to you that there's no more medium that's been more corrupted by our culture than radio and a lot of the stuff that's going on. But this is the bread and butter of what we do, especially in Catholic media. This is where we touch the people intimately, one-on-one. This is where we hear their feedback and what they're feeling and where their faith is in real time on the telephone with our call-in shows. It's irreplaceable. Listen, radio's going nowhere. Let's just get that out there right away. Study after study after study tells you that over 80% of the people that consume any media at all will listen to the radio in their car. If people have, and we love our partnership with Sirius XM Channel 130, wonderful people to work with, gives us a great opportunity to get into places we wouldn't otherwise be able to get into. But 75% of the people that have satellite radio subscriptions will listen to the program on a terrestrial station if it's available.
Why do you think that is? Because it seems just the opposite of what should be happening, that people are still listening to terrestrial radio with all the technology that's out there.
Because it's local, and it brings them back to where they are. Listen, the principles of Holy Mother Church are not principles for the sake of being principles. They're principles because they reflect some inner yearning in how God has created us. The principle of subsidiarity has been preached in the Catholic Church from the time that Jesus walked the earth. Everything should be handled at the most local level possible because that feeds our spirit. God knows, Jesus knew how we're wired, that he made us, for crying out loud. Mm-hmm. He knows what's best for us. And, the effort that we put into flying in the face of even the best of us, even the most earnestly seeking Jesus Catholic people, we just can't get out of our own way sometimes.
Right.
If you want to screw something up, get people involved, right?
Yeah. We're talking with Jack Williams from EWTN Radio, 42 minutes past the hour here on a Thursday. We are live from McLean, Virginia, and the conference is going on, and Matthew Bunson, Mateo as I call him, is speaking right now, our keynote. And we have so many wonderful affiliates that came to kind of join and have this little pilgrimage. We had a beautiful day yesterday at the Shrine in D.C. Let's talk about the growth of Catholic radio and where we are right now. What are we up to, 600 affiliates?
Well, there's 460 stations in the United States carrying EWTN programming. If you count Spanish and Latin America, South Africa, other parts, small parts of the African continent, over 600 affiliates carrying English and Spanish programming for EWTN. And it all started with, Mother Angelica was, was considering pulling back from the television operation. She started that in 1981, and in the late 80s, she thought that maybe she needed to kind of spend a little more time, and she was the abbess of a cloistered monastery, for crying out loud, spend more time with her sisters. And she took that before our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. She said he told her not only was she not to pull back from that, but she was to start a shortwave radio network. And she said, I don't know anything about shortwave radio. Mm-hmm. And she said, he told her, I know, get started. So she thought this would happen in Roma, where all the languages of the world convene. Right. But she kept running into European bureaucracy on top of European bureaucracy. And she started to think that perhaps this is not a door that's going to be open. So she started looking for land around Irondale, where she lived. And she's going up a road which is every bit as treacherous today as it was.
I know,
I've
been on it. Yep.
As it was the day that she was in a car with a realtor and her chief engineer, Matt Scalisi, and she claimed that she saw St. Michael sitting on top of the mountain that they were climbing.
Wow.
And they get to the top of the mountain, and she says, we'll take it. And Matt Scalisi says, Mother, I told you on the way up here, while we were on this road, this is a mountain full of iron ore. This shortwave operation that you're contemplating putting together has an intricate copper ground system, and the ore in the mountains is going to mess with everything, and you can't do what you want to do here. And she said, do you see St. Michael sitting on this mountain? And Matt said, no, Mother, I don't. And she said, we'll take it. And they took it, and not only did they build it, not only did it work, but it worked beyond their wildest imagination. Yeah. And the first letter they received after they flipped the switch was from a woman in Japan.
Wow.
Thanking Mother Angelica for her channel of Buddhist prayer. Mother said, Buddhist prayer? So she had one of the sisters do some research, and she came back and said, Mother, they were listening to the Rosary. They think the Rosary is Buddhist prayer.
Okay.
So in pure Mother Angelica fashion, she said, yeah, let them think that.
Yeah. Now, Jeanette told a beautiful story. Your beautiful wife, of course, Jeanette Williams, from Women of Grace and EWTN, radio, TV, all her many books and ministry. She was telling the story of Mother Angelica and just her determination, to push through with this. And I think that's what we do here, and we help affiliates. So today, it's going to be an interesting day. We're doing a presentation on Ready, Set, Show. Myself, Anna Mitchell, Ace McKay, one of your fine producers at EWTN, and of course Matt Swain from the Sunrise Morning Show, to help them and give them information, because a lot of these people come together and they're not sure how to start a Catholic radio station, or maybe they just started and they need some help. That's what's so great about this, is they can tap into a lot of experience.
Well, now I understand that clears it up for me. I thought Ready, Set, Show was like getting your hair done to be on television.
I thought
and
too.
I was trying to figure out why Matt Swain was on that panel
because he has no hair.
And now I get it. That makes more sense. No, but seriously, we do every year. We bring all of the affiliates. Listen, these are people. You know, Mother Angelica flipped the switch in 1992. And as Johnette was talking about, it was a sheer battle of the wills, matter of determination that got her over the finish line. She had a benefactor, a Dutch businessman who had made his wealth in sporting goods, and he was basically footing the bill for the operation. And she had to keep him warm for many years, and he was getting frustrated, but he stuck with her, and he was with her when they flipped the switch to turn this thing on. But in 1995, she went on her live show. Her late show.
It's the Late Show with Mother Angelica.
Boy, that
would have been a hit on secular media.
Excuse me, I'm going to write that down. Teresa she only thinks she thought of it. Yeah. But she went on her live show, and she said that if anybody, she basically said, I know there's a bunch of you out there that have got a lot of money. Said if anybody has a radio station, an AM or FM radio station, or if you have the means that you could procure one, we will give you the programming for free. By the end of 1996, she had 6 people take her up on that offer, and now we have over 460, as I mentioned earlier, or have exactly 460 AM and FM affiliates in the United States carrying EWTN radio programming. And these people are not radio people. Most of these people are not business people.
Right.
I promise you, some of these people, as amazing as they are, probably couldn't have balanced their checkbooks when they got involved in this whole endeavor. They were just answering the call.
They were called.
Something Mother Angelica, the Holy Spirit through Mother Angelica struck a chord in their heart, and so we try to provide every last bit of support that we possibly can to help them. First of all, to help their apostolate survive and to keep their station on the air, because the power company doesn't care about the good work that they're about. Everybody else, the licensing, the FCC certainly doesn't care about the good work that they're about. So they've got to paddle hard to keep these things going, and we try to give them as much support as we can, whether it be we provide all the programming that they would like to take for free, whether it be engineering support. We have one of the members of our engineering team is dedicated just to talk to radio affiliates. Programming ideas, how to do show prep, we're going to have fundraising. That's a big thing for every apostolate, is raising money. We're going to have a workshop on that later today. So anything that we can do, we put the entire EWTN universe at their disposal to support the good work that they're about.
And I think, again, the fact that we're here and the timing of this, one of my topics for the panel that we're having is, it's show prep. So what do you do when a big story breaks? If you have that type of a format where you have a talk show and you don't acknowledge this massive story out there, then the listeners are going to turn. They're going to turn away, but they know they can turn to us and know they're going to hear something about this huge story from a Catholic perspective. And that, I think, is super important.
Mother Angelica always thought news was important, and I think she is so happy, but if she were walking the earth today, she would be so thrilled with what has become of the news division here at EWTN. And, we're not in it for ratings. We're not in it for money. We're in it for
evangelization.
The truth and evangelization from a Catholic perspective. The truth's attractive.
Right.
The truth's attractive.
What can people do to support Catholic radio? I always tell them to support both their local, if they have one, local Catholic radio station and the network.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way to do it. The soul that you save may be your own, I tell people sometimes.
That sounds like a song.
Yeah. But it's very true. These people are about a good work. And listen, I'm going to tell you right now, ain't nobody in this room over your left shoulder right now listening to Dr. Matthew Bunson give a keynote address at this radio. Ain't none of them getting rich doing this, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They are in it for the right reasons. Every single apostolate I am intimately familiar with that carries our radio programming, and I can vouch for every one of them. They are fiscally responsible beyond what you could even begin to imagine, and they're worthy of your support. And I would encourage everybody to keep that Catholic radio station, whether you listen to it or not, keep it alive. And you know what? If you don't listen to it, start listening to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you doing today? Just kind of hanging out, eating bonbons, and doing nothing?
Doing radio shows.
Doing radio shows? Yeah.
I'm not getting rich either, so I'm following Guarendi around trying to get some of that big psychology money to buy me lunch or
What's
something.
up with that? Well, Jack, thanks so much. I know it's a very, very busy time for you, but I love these radio conferences. I'm glad I was able to attend, and so many people are so thankful for what we do and the programming. And it really makes us feel like we're making a difference, because sometimes when you're on the radio, as you know, as a radio person, as Tom Price does, sometimes you don't see the people unless you literally bump into them and they tell you. We had that happen yesterday at the Basilica, people coming up to us who recognized, because Monsignor Rossi made the point of saying that we've got people from EWTN, and people were walking up to us and thanking us. And I know someone stopped Johnette and stopped me, stopped other people to let us know.
You're welcome, by the way.
You did pay them to do that?
No, quite frankly, you were nothing before I sold your books.
That's true. I remember that.
You were not even a blip on the literary landscape.
This is what you put up with also in Catholic radio.
It's the truth.
Are you sure you're not Italian?
Until
you
I
sound
got
like
involved.
Mother. Until you got my books.
Until I got involved.
You changed my life.
You were nothing. It's the truth.
So I wasn't doing a show when you met me?
And
I hadn't worked in radio and TV for 20 years?
In the literary world.
In the literary world.
In the literary world.
All right.
You were
nothing.
Everything positive that has happened to you from a literary perspective happened after I sold your books in Hastings, Nebraska.
Okay, so then I must owe you a lot of royalty money then.
Well, I'm a humble man, Teresa. I don't. I'm so humble that I don't even have to compete with Ray for the Humility Award.
I was just going to say, you're even more humble than Dr. Ray.
I don't even need to fill in for Al Cresta of happy memory now that he's no longer eligible, because
Well, I thank you from the bottom of my now literary heart.
We'll always have Hastings.
Yes, we'll always have Hastings, my dear. Don't tell Johnette. All right. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, folks. And we will talk to you in the next hour on EWTN Radio Extra. Ciao, ciao. Thanks so much for tuning into Catholic Connection. Again, we are live here at the EWTN Radio Conference, and of course, second hour Catholic Connection coming up on EWTN Radio Extra. You'll find me chatting with Kelsey Reinhardt from Catholic Vote about the dangers of Mifepristone and what's going on across the country to raise awareness. And we'll have 2 cents as well. And then also coming up tomorrow on our show, you're really going to want to hear from Michael O'Neill, the Miracle Hunter. He is a host on EWTN. We're going to talk about the canonizations coming up a week from this Sunday in Roma for both Carlo Acutis and Pier Giorgio Frassati. And it's a really great conversation. We sat down and taped with Michael last week for the show tomorrow for you, because I'll be heading back to Michigan at that time and can't be live. But we were talking about the importance of the ability to visit the tombs of these saints, and there's a lot of exciting things going on with young people now because of Frassati and also Carlo Acutis. And by the way, when we get back to Italy, God willing, this weekend, we're going to go to Assisi because we live very close to there, and we're going to check out the new statue that they have of Carlo in front of St. Mary Major. So the brand new statue of him, a bronze statue from Timothy Schmaltz. We're trying to get the sculptor on with us. And it shows Carlo holding a computer, and there's the image of the chalice and the Eucharist on the computer. So it's a very, very beautiful, beautiful thing, the way they devote so much beautiful exposure to Carlo in Assisi, where he is buried. Wishing you a beautiful day, and please don't forget the family celebration coming up this weekend, which will be live. And always remember to keep us and your local Catholic affiliate between your gas and electric bills. We'll talk to you on EWTN Extra. Ciao.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tamio.
And we continue our Thursday program here, and it is a Thursday morning, and we are down in the Washington, D.C., Virginia area, as you may know if you've been listening, because we are attending the EWTN Catholic Radio Conference, which is a beautiful annual event that brings together our affiliates, people interested in Catholic radio, and a whole host of experts that discuss the growth of Catholic radio and the EWTN Radio Extra. So it's a lot of fun, and it's also a lot of work because we provide a lot of great resources for not only the affiliates who want to get updated on what's happening at the network, but also with folks who are looking for help maybe with engineering, or let's say some sort of underwriting or help with promotions, all kinds of things, their websites, their social media presence. All of these aspects, these communication details, are what goes into Catholic radio. And this is why it's so important to support. I always say both EWTN and your local Catholic radio station, because we work hand in hand. Now, EWTN provides, for example, my program or the other programs that EWTN produces for free to the affiliates. So when you start up a station, you don't have to hire producers or on-air talent. Not that anybody in Catholic radio is getting rich, but it's still a cost, it's an expense to have that staff. And in addition to a brick and mortar facility where you have to pay the lighting bill, the heating bill, keep the station on the air, the broadcast hour, have someone help you with a website. So again, this is all the more reason when you think about it, and I know it may sound, too much inside baseball in terms of the different discussions we have, but it's something to think about. I mean, if you're involved in any type of business, or even if you're retired, you know what goes into keeping a company afloat. And think about it if you're in Catholic radio, where the funds are based on listenership, and we don't do advertising. We are listener and family supported. So keep that in mind and pray for us here at the radio conference. And I'll be telling you a little bit more about it, of course, on tomorrow's program. But it's a lot of fun, and we really enjoy being able to see each other, the personalities, and just catching up and just spending time together, which is really nice. And tonight there is a big banquet, and there will be various awards given out for different areas of ministry in radio. And we'll hear from our CEO, Michael Warsaw, who also always attends the conference. And Dr. Matthew Bunson is giving a keynote, actually, just wrapping up a keynote right now. No, I missed it because I was on the air, but I'll get the cliff notes from Matthew, because I think we're going to be grabbing maybe a wine or a drink with him and his lovely wife, Bonnie. So anyway, I digress. Today on the program, in the second hour of Catholic Connection, we are going to revisit an interview with our friends at Catholic Vote. Kelsey Reinhardt is going to be talking to us about some of the efforts to raise awareness on what's going on with the abortion pill. This is such an important discussion, and so crucial for us to understand what the industry is doing because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the defunding of Planned Parenthood, even for a year. And actually, it began heavily with the overturning of Roe v. Wade a few years ago, where Planned Parenthood realized that the business model that they had isn't going to be working because there were going to be different crackdowns. And so what they're trying to do is provide abortions, which are very lucrative for them, obviously, any way possible. And a lot of this has to do with the very, very dangerous abortion pill. So we'll discuss with Kelsey Reinhardt of Catholic Vote. Right now, though, we need to give you the weather and the news here on a Thursday morning. And here's a look at the forecast first before we get to the news this morning on a Thursday, the feast of, again, St. Augustine of Hippo. The National Weather Service says an area of thunderstorms and heavy rains may produce flash flooding in the central and southern plains, specifically southeast Kansas into the morning. Monsoon moisture will continue also to produce areas of heavy rainfall and the potential for flooding and debris flow across the northern Intermountain West. Now let's take a look at the news on a Thursday morning here on EWTN's Radio Extra. Now let's take a look at the news here on EWTN's Radio Extra on a Thursday morning. As we've been reporting, 2 children are dead with 17 more hurt after a gunman opened fire to the windows of a Minneapolis Catholic church and Annunciation School yesterday morning. The Archbishop of St. Paul and Minneapolis, Bernard Hebda, expressing concern for families not only in his archdiocese, but everywhere.
But how sad it is, for sure, not only for the families who are directly involved, but indeed for families everywhere who feel the threat that comes from an event, a tragedy like today's.
The shooting happened at Annunciation during a mass celebrating the first week of school. Among those hurt were 14 children between the ages of 6 and 15, along with 3 parishioners in their 80s. All of the hurt are expected to survive. The FBI identifying the shooter as 23-year-old Robin Westman, and they're investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. Police say Westman died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Meanwhile, from Rome, the Holy Father is said to be profoundly saddened by the deadly shooting at the Catholic school in Minneapolis. In a statement, the Vatican saying the Pope is offering the assurance of spiritual closeness to all those affected by this terrible tragedy, especially the families now grieving the loss of a child. And after a pair of out-of-state school shootings in 2022 and 23 shocked the nation, the bishops in Minnesota implored state lawmakers to provide security funding for local non-public schools. Now, as Catholic News Agency and the Register are reporting, 2 years after their appeals went unheeded, tragedy has struck one of their own. And the tragedy comes after the Minnesota Catholic Conference, a public policy voice of the 6 dioceses in the state, made requests to state officials to extend funds for security upgrades and emergency response training to non-public schools in both 2022 and 2023. The statement said we need to ensure that our schools have the resources to respond to and prevent these attacks from happening. That was according to Jason Adkins, the executive director of the Minnesota Catholic Conference, in an April 14, 2023 letter to Governor Tim Walz and the Lieutenant Governor, both of whom are Democrats. The letter was also signed by Tim Benz, the president of a Minnesota independent school organization. If MCC's request had been granted, Catholic schools such as Annunciation would have been able to use state funds for enhancements such as secure entries to facilities or to even hire school resource officers. But the bishop's appeals were rebuffed in both years as related bills stalled in the state legislature, resulting in no additional funding for non-public school security. Meanwhile, for the 2023 legislative session, Minnesota enjoyed a historic $17.6 billion surplus. The Minnesota bishop's efforts to secure school security funding came after state lawmakers had passed safe school legislation back in 2019 that provided money for security enhancements to public schools, but not to non-public ones. And in 2022, after a bill to expand the funding, Minnesota bishops urged the governor to call a special session and pass an expansion to safe schools. The measure would have provided $44 per student for security costs regardless of their school's affiliation. Auxiliary Bishop Kevin Kenny, meanwhile, saying the parents are in shock. He said it's unbelievable that this could happen, telling a local TV station, it's very sad for the community, it's very sad for families that they've lost loved ones. And the man who killed 2 children and hurt 17 others in that shooting yesterday posted a YouTube video before the attack, which showed anti-Christian motivation for the murders and an affinity for mass shooters, Satanism, anti-Semitism, and racism. Robin Westman was born Robert and identified as a transgender woman, according to the Catholic News Agency, and again he died by suicide yesterday. In a video posted ahead of the attack, which YouTube has since removed from its website, the shooter showed a written apology to his friends and family, but clarified that's the only people I'm sorry to, and then disparaged the children he planned to shoot. Westman wrote the names of about a dozen mass murderers on his weapons. Most of those names are written on magazines, while some were written on the rifles. With school shootings starting in New York next week, Nassau County in New York is launching what it says is the first in national technology, as Sarah Lee Kessler reports, to help police respond more quickly to school shootings and other incidents.
Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman making that announcement Wednesday, coincidentally, on the same day as the church tragedy involving students in Minneapolis.
Our number one job is to protect our kids.
Attention, our school is now in lockdown.
Plain Edge schools in Massapequa now have live camera feeds and devices in every classroom and bathroom to alert police in real time to dangerous incidents. Nassau Police Commissioner Patrick Ryder.
The last thing we want is kids reporting from inside a school what's going on.
The county has also assembled a new strategic response team made up of 40 police officers. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
And back in Minneapolis, faith leaders in the city are showing their support following the shooting. Father Eric Rutten from the Archdiocese there was among those who visited the site of the shooting. He said at one point all he could do was start a group prayer and ask for God's help. The Annunciation Catholic Church is in the south side of the city. The school teaches pre-K through 8th grade. Images show countless parents holding and hugging their crying children while being reunited. Rory O'Neill tells us that the president is ordering flags to be flown at half-staff following the shooting.
2 children died and 14 more were wounded in the shooting at the Annunciation Catholic Church. 3 adults were also injured in the attack that happened during a mass to mark the start of the new school year. Minneapolis police identified the shooter as 23-year-old Robin Westman, a former student there who died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. A possible manifesto written and posted online is being reviewed. The FBI is investigating the attack as a hate crime. I'm Rory O'Neill.
And in other news this morning, the Trump administration plans to take over Union Station in Washington, D.C., the Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy making the announcement yesterday, saying the nation has fallen into true disrepair. It's the latest move by the White House as part of the president's crime crackdown in the Capitol. William Denzow tells us the European Union is condemning an overnight Russian attack on the Ukrainian capital that claimed the lives of over a dozen people and damaged the office housing the EU's delegation.
Images shared by the EU's ambassador to Ukraine, Katerina Mathanova, show extensive damage to the delegation's building in Kyiv, with blown-out windows and heavy damage to the ceilings and walls. EU staff members are safe, but other citizens in Ukraine's capital weren't so lucky. The bloc's Foreign Affairs Chief Kaja Kallas says the latest strike is a deliberate choice by Russia to mock ongoing peace efforts. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeated calls for tougher sanctions on Moscow and for greater action from the international community. William Denslow, Brussels.
The Latin and Greek Orthodox Patriarchs of Jerusalem releasing a joint appeal for peace in Gaza earlier this week, saying there is no reason to justify the deliberate and forcible mass displacement of civilians. Vatican News on Wednesday saying the Pope joining his voice to theirs and recalling the day of prayer and fasting for peace, which took place on Friday, August 22nd, saying, "I renew a strong appeal to both the parties involved and to the international community that an end be put to the conflict in the Holy Land, which has caused so much terror, destruction, and death." He also called for the safe entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza and the protection of civilians, appealing for all hostages, he said, to be freed, a permanent ceasefire to be reached, the safe entry of humanitarian aid to be facilitated, and humanitarian law to be fully respected, especially the obligation to protect civilians and the prohibitions against collective punishment, the indiscriminate use of force, and the forced displacement of populations. President Trump's Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in Texas to celebrate the signing of a number of nutrition-based bills.
We know it's making us sick, and we owe it to our children to make sure that they're not exposed to these kind of exposures.
One bill signed yesterday by the governor bans ultra-processed foods from free or reduced-cost school lunches. Another change calls for changes for the rules for food stamps, making sure they cannot be used to buy candy or soda. It is a Thursday morning. Thanks for tuning in to Catholic Connection Second Hour here on EWTN Radio Extra. More Showtime coming up. Minutes past the hour, EWTN coast to coast and around the globe. We are on the internet, as you well know, EWTN's Radio Extra. We are on some 600 affiliates across the country. We're on shortwave. We're on TV. We're on satellite. We're everywhere. Thank you, Jesus. We try to be anyway, to keep you connected to the Catholic community and beyond. Okay. So I love this story on the Vatican News site. You can find it at vaticannews.va or Vatican VA and just go to the news link there, but it's easier, vaticannews.va. And the headline reads, "How to Spend Your Holidays According to the Popes." And it has a beautiful picture of the town of Castel Gandolfo. And if you want to look that up, it's CASTELGAN Gandolfo, Gand as in David, OLFO, and it is south of Rome. It is in, they call it the hill country of Rome. And as I was explaining on another radio program this morning, it's a lovely area. And what's great is if you are planning a trip to Rome, whether it be this summer or any time in the near future, if you need a break from the big city, and trust me, you will, this is a great place to go. It is close. By car, it's 30 minutes. There's also trains that you can take there. And it's just so pretty. Again, it is above a lake, the Lake Albano, which is was a volcanic lake, so it's very picturesque. It's very dramatic because of that. And it's just lovely. In addition to having a pontifical villa and the Vatican Gardens behind it, it's just adorable. It has a cute little square. It has a beautiful church. It has, I think, the first, or I wrote about this in my book, one of the smallest post offices, or the first post office in the world. And then it has great restaurants and wonderful religious shops, and you just get away from the hustle and bustle. Okay, so Castel Gandolfo, south of Rome. This is where now the Pope Leo the 14th, is taking back this tradition of vacationing in Castel Gandolfo. So the story reads again the headline, How to Spend Your Holidays According to the Popes. As Pope Leo takes some time off at the pontifical villas of Castel Gandolfo from July 6th to the 20th. So that's 14 days. It's 2 full weeks. Vatican News looks at what past popes have said about holidays. A break from work to restore physical strength, a chance to travel and contemplate the beauty of nature, a time for reading and new friendships, or to meditate and pray. These are some of the aspects that past popes, the article says, have emphasized when reflecting on the importance of vacation periods. So we just mentioned that the Pope is taking from July 6th to the 20th off at Castel Gandolfo, and then he's also going to be going down there in a few more days, or for a few more days in August. And again, it's about 25 kilometers, about 16 miles from Rome, takes you with traffic and the different roads, takes you about 25-30 minutes to get there. How can one make the best of his or her time? That's a question that features prominently in many papal reflections, as holidays have an important role in human life. Again, this might be an article you can, download, maybe print up if you still like hard copy like I do, and just read while you're on your vacation, by the way. How can one make the best use of his time off? A question that features prominently again in many papal reflections. The Pope stressed that this period should not be viewed simply as a time of idleness. For example, vacation can instead be an opportunity to pause and reflect on the beauty of nature or God's book, as described by Pope Paul VI. He pointed out that during the holidays, we can rediscover the always open, always new, always beautiful creation. Nature with its space, atmosphere, animals, things, the sea, mountains, plains, the sky with its dawns, its noons, its sunsets, and especially its starry nights. Always deep and enchanting, Pope Paul VI said. For the Pope's, holidays are a time of rest and relaxation, but also meditating and turning toward God. It's a time of interrupting the ordinary work routine and can foster, or should foster, inner silence and reflection. I love that. During his Angelus on August 5th, 1973, Pope Paul VI explained what he thought this period of rest should look like. Let us ensure, he said, that free time, which we call vacation, is not entirely spent in dissipation or selfishness, relaxation, refreshment, recreation. In that sense, yes, but intelligent and vigilant. He suggested, for example, catching up on our reading that may have been put off or aside during the year, or taking part in excursions to discover the beautiful treasures of history and art. He also highlighted that holidays are a privileged time for good friendships, for getting to know places, customs, and needs of the people we do not usually approach, and for meeting new people worthy of our conversation. Pope John Paul II, who loves spending rest periods in the mountains, often emphasized that in order to regenerate themselves, people need harmony and the joy of meeting with others. He said, for a vacation to be truly such and bring genuine well-being, in it a person must recover a good balance with himself and others and with the environment. He said this during his Angelus on July 6, 1997. He added that it is this interior and exterior harmony wish that revitalizes the mind and reinvigorates body and spirit. Benedict XVI said, in nature, man can rediscover himself. During his Angelus message in 2005, on July 17th, in northern Italy, he highlighted the need to be physically and mentally replenished through a relaxing contact with nature. Moreover, he said, holidays are days on which we can give even more time to prayer, reading, and meditation on the profound meaning of life and peaceful context of our own family and loved ones. Looking at the stirring views of nature, he said, a marvelous book within the reach of everyone, adults or children, can rediscover their proper dimension. They recognize that they are creatures, but at the same time unique, capable of God, since they are inwardly open to the infinite. And Francis, in his audience on August 6, 2017, emphasized that holidays can also be a good time to deepen one's own spiritual journey, even while traveling between tourist destinations. Summer season, he said, is a providential time to cultivate our task of seeking and encountering the Lord. In this period of rest and disengagement from daily activities, we can reinforce our strengths of body and soul. He also encouraged the faithful to entrust their holidays to the Blessed Mother so she can help them be in harmony with the Word of God so that Christ may become light throughout our life, including our vacations. And see, this is the thing. We take a vacation, but we never vacation from God. Okay? And one of the most important points I try to make in all my work in terms of leading tours in Italy that I've been doing for almost 25 years now with my ministry, TravelItalyExpert.com, which I truly consider a ministry, where I consult people with their itineraries on Italy, and my book, Italy, Shrines and Wonders. Italy, like life, is meant to be savored, and that means your vacation is meant to be savored. So many people, and I say this in the beginning of the book, and we did this too in the early years when we first started coming here, wanted to get as many things off our bucket list, our Italy bucket list, as possible. What happens, brothers and sisters, is that what you see here in this country in terms of the architecture, the art, the beauty, the nature, it's so overwhelming that at some point, if you're doing too much, you are just going to shut down. Your mind can't absorb it all. So when you're on vacation, and many people do combine a vacation with a pilgrimage, which is fine, you make sure that in between seeing St. Peter's or St. Mary Major or the Colosseum or the Forum or the Catacombs or San Francesco in Assisi, that in between you do niente, nothing. And I mean nothing. Well, what does that mean? Well, have a cappuccino. Spend a lot of time having that cappuccino. Take a walk in a park in Rome or go to Castel Gandolfo. But listen to the advice of the popes. We need to refresh, rejuvenate, and we should never, ever need a vacation from our vacation or after our vacation. Hope you think about that. We'll be right back. St. Bonaventure, pray for us. It is Tuesday, July 15th, the feast day of the Angelic Doctor from Central Italy. Kelsey Reinhardt is on the phone with us this morning. She's the head of Catholic Vote, another wonderful organization that is out there defending our Catholic faith and freedoms, religious freedom. They do such a great job. Gosh, Kelsey, I know there's so much to talk about, but let's start with what's happening with the latest information and review on the abortion pill, Mifepristone. And then I have so many questions for you on that, but other issues. Thanks for joining us this morning. What's the latest with the review of the information on the abortion pill?
Well, the latest is that it's in the hands of the FDA Commissioner, Dr. Marty Makary, and we're very hopeful that there will be a rollback on what has been a sort of very loose policy implemented after COVID and during the Biden administration. But I think it's worth taking a look at the entire history of Mifepristone, of the abortion pill, to really see how absolutely politicized this medicine has been. And I'd love to go through that with you, Teresa.
Sure, go ahead. Very interested to hear it.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know that most people know that Mifepristone was actually Planned Parenthood's idea to privatize abortion, to make it a do-it-yourself procedure at home. They began working on this and it was first synthesized in France in 1980 because they understood that the spread of abortion clinics, which had become popular after Roe versus Wade, were actually becoming increasingly unpopular. And so they thought that the legal tide was turning against Roe, which, as we know in Dobbs, did happen. And so they thought, if we can find a way to privatize abortion and make it a do-at-home procedure, it would keep this industry afloat. And so in 1998, only France and communist China had approved it. And this alone should give us pause.
Hello, right?
Yes, exactly. And 1989, the FDA banned Mifepristone from being imported to the U.S., so there's historical precedence for this being banned. And then in 1993, President Clinton told the FDA to take another look, and by 2000, under pressure from the abortion lobby and still under Clinton, the FDA approved it. So I think we have to look at the politicization of this drug from the very beginning. It was understood to be very dangerous, and by 2011, just 11 years after the FDA had approved it, they had to implement a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, or REMS for short. And that meant you had to go to a hospital or clinic to get it. 3 medical visits were required. And in some states, the doctor actually had to be physically present when the woman took the pill.
Well, that makes sense because it's so strong and it's so dangerous. I mean, of course. And now it's just, get it through the mail. Get it wherever over the. This is insane if they're so concerned about reproductive health, right?
And you're right, Teresa. That's what the EPP, the Ethics and Public Policy Center study showed, was that this is so dangerous. We were sold a lie. Well, I don't know that any of us believed it in terms of the Catholic population or common sense folks, but we were sold a lie that it was as safe as Tylenol. And what the FDA did was another sleight of hand with the data. And we've seen that Robert Kennedy...
Safe, wait a minute. I have to stop you there. I want you to repeat that. As safe as Tylenol. So, over-the-counter pain medication you take for aches and pains or a headache, it's equal to, is the same as Mifepristone. Are you kidding me?
Yes, and that's, I've never seen a study like the study that the the Ethics and Public Policy Center put out with the data that they did. The danger, there's 11% of the times that this was used resulted in sepsis, in hemorrhages, in hospitalization. I have never seen 11% of Tylenol patients hospitalized for use of Tylenol. This is really blatant politicization of the medicine. And again, they did a sleight of hand with the data. What did they do? They only compared the deaths of Tylenol with the deaths of the abortion pill. And of course, not counting the deaths of the child, but just of the women and girls who took it. So this was a very blatant politicization of the Biden administration to say, it's safer than Tylenol. But fast forward to 2023, finally a U.S. district judge called it like it is, and they said that the FDA's process was flawed. And another panel of judges agreed. They didn't ban the drug, but they said at least it should not be sent by mail, not prescribed through telemedicine, require in-person visits. But then, of course, as we've seen with a lot of issues in our nation right now, another judge came along and said, wait a minute, these rules are creating access barriers. And so they rolled the restrictions back again. And now we have this science that's saying, we simply cannot go on with this being less regulated than antidiarrheals like Lomotil or Motofin. We don't even let people get over-the-counter Sudafed in some instances because we're worried about what teenagers or other actors will do with it. And so the idea that this is going to be less regulated than those drugs, the science just doesn't bear it out.
How much of this is related to the bottom line? Because they know the industry, the abortion industry knows that it's getting more and more difficult. Word is getting out there, especially with the last election, that even if people call themselves pro-choice, they want limits, a lot of limits on abortion. And they know they're losing support, but they need the money. And this is a quick fix in terms of the dollar, right?
Yeah, they do. They do need the money, and I think that we've seen that there's a lot of corruption in healthcare related back to these financial incentives, and yet I think that the perversion here is really intensely political, more than it is financial. I mean,
that's a good point.
This is something that just no honest researcher and statistician can respond to the fact that there's 11% of women are experiencing these complications like hemorrhage, sepsis, surgery, hospitalization. I mean, that's 22 times higher than the FDA's claimed rate. I mean,
look at Abby Johnson's experience in her book, right? Unplanned. And she talks about that in the book, and we saw it in the film in terms of what she suffered when she took the abortion pill. It is such a lie, Kelsey. It's so political, but they just lie completely. And women, their health is being greatly affected in the course of the lives of the children.
Well, and you've pointed out such a great point. You know, a lot of these women, when they take this pill, they experience a great deal of shame around the procedure. They're at home having sepsis, having hemorrhage, you know, and they're afraid to call into their doctor, and these complications, you know, worsen because, you know, they're embarrassed what they've done. People don't know that there's an abortion pill reversal procedure out there, which I think is really important to proclaim, and that's experienced a lot of censorship on online and whatnot. But you know, there's so much harm that's happening to women, and it's really happening in these you know, in the privacy of their homes, where, you know, they're afraid to even admit to themselves that this is so dangerous, you know, or they don't have the medical capacity to recognize that they shouldn't be bleeding to the extent that they are, and so this pill is dastardly. It is so devastating for women and girls.
Yeah. And also then the home becomes, you know, the place of the trauma. It's bad enough when women have that experience at an abortion facility, but then the home becomes a place of the trauma. And so they have this ongoing psychological fallout and spiritual fallout because of what happened. I mean, this is just so ridiculous. The abortion pill is equal to Tylenol. Yeah, we were born, but not yesterday. Give me a break. More with Kelsey Reinhardt, president of Catholic Vote, talking about information coming out on Mifepristone, the review, and also what we can do about it, what we should be doing. We certainly need to educate ourselves on this and what they've been trying to sell us for so many years. We'll be right back. Minutes past the hour. Welcome back. You know, thinking about our beautiful gospel for this weekend on Sunday, the Good Samaritan, and how the Lord tells the man of the law, kind of turns everything on its head. And the Pope talked about this in his homily on Sunday, and so did our associate pastor. And I discussed this in 2 Cents yesterday in the second hour of the program. The Lord doesn't give the man of the law an exact answer as to, okay, well, who is my neighbor? The man of the law wanted to justify himself, and Scripture even uses that phrase. He wanted to justify himself, and he asked a question of Jesus. And so he was expecting a list. Okay, this person is your neighbor. This person is your neighbor. This person is your neighbor. So if you cover all these people, you got your nice little box, and you're good to go. But what the Lord turned it on him and said, he asked him, who's best served? The man on the road who was obviously beaten and needed help. And the response was the Good Samaritan. So what Jesus was asking, he's asking us the same thing. And it gets to what we're talking about this morning, both with Bill Donahue and with our interview right now with Kelsey. God is asking us to keep our eyes open, and that we have to do the work and say, okay, well, who's my brother and sister? Who's my neighbor? And what do I need to do? In addition to, obviously, being pro-life and supporting the unborn, women in, of course, unplanned pregnancies, women who find themselves in very difficult situations, including the elderly, of course, all of these issues. But at the same time, it's broader than that. God is asking us, and the Pope said this too, to work at this and to recognize needs. And this issue that we're talking about right now, as Kelsey has so eloquently been explaining for us from the Catholic Vote, this push of the abortion pill, It's up to us to understand what's happening here. It is very political, but the women who find themselves in desperate situations and don't know that there's help out there, don't know about the local pregnancy resource center, don't know that the abortion pill can be reversed, it's up to us to see these women as our neighbors and to give them the information and to support the pregnancy resource centers and the pro-life doctors in the communities to make sure they have that information. Think about how ridiculous this is. Putting information out there that this pill is equal to any types of complications with Tylenol. Are you kidding me? This is just it's so frustrating to me that they've been able to get away with this kind of nonsense for decades. That's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Extreme Makeover, because I was so fed up as a woman when I started to finally study the church teaching and see and do the research on what was going on with the industry of abortion and the culture of death. I was like, basta, enough already. Anyhow, Kelsey, I just had to get that on my system. I'm Italian, and I had to say those things because it's all true. Right, sister?
It is all true. It is all true. I mean, Mifepristone is a chemical that interferes with progesterone, which is a natural hormone necessary for a healthy pregnancy. It's still banned in several countries. And, I think you're absolutely right. Pregnancy isn't a disease. It doesn't need to be treated. There are a lot of lies going on in this whole field. And I'll point out, too, Teresa, that 63% of abortions, according to the the Guttmacher Institute, are through the abortion pill. So, this is really important for people to be educated and informed on this. And I think also, to take action. And the Ethics and Public Policy Center is seeking public comments on 3 pending FDA citizen petitions. They're all from the left, all seeking to remove any restrictions on abortion drugs. And people can go to their website and submit comments on all of them. I think that's a great thing to do in addition to everything that you've just mentioned, supporting pregnancy resource centers, helping women, letting them know that there is an abortion pill reversal.
I'm really praying for, we were talking about this during the break, for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's done some very good things in terms of our health and food and the quality of medicine and whatnot. He was at least willing to review this, which is huge, even though he says, and he admitted this during the campaign, that he considers himself pro-choice, but he's rolled it back, and I just think that we just really need to pray for him because at least he was willing to make sure this was happening, which is super important, and I think that's a real positive sign. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. This is a very positive sign, and what happens now, the FDA decides what's next, and the fight isn't over. If they keep the current rules, pro-lifers will challenge it. If they tighten the regulations, the abortion lobby will sue. So eventually, Teresa, I think what we're going to see is that this will land back at the Supreme Court. Only this time, the Supreme Court will have the science. And I think that this is going to be, one of those cases where upon reviewing data like what the Ethics and Public Policy has put together, it's going to be very difficult for them to make a convincing case that this is not just pushing politics to have this drug approved.
Absolutely. Talking with Kelsey Reinhardt, the president of Catholic Vote. Do we know, Kelsey, how long this review process with the FDA commissioner is? I mean, is it ongoing? Are you expecting to hear anything soon? What's the latest with that?
We don't know how long it's going to take. And I think, that's part of this is I haven't, the study hasn't been peer reviewed. And so he's going to have his data persons go all the way through this and take a look at everything that's been aggregated and shown to be the case. So I think it should be some matter of time, but we're a little bit unclear of the timeline at this moment.
Okay, but at least it's being reviewed, which is super important. And you mentioned the petition. Where do they find the petitions? At the Ethics and Policy Center website? You
can go to the Ethics and Public Policy website for that petition. As I mentioned, there's 3 of them, and they're all citizen petitions that, allow you to submit comments and weigh in on where these regulations are going. Rep. Andy Harris also has something in the House, and he's attempting to, again, just side with people that this really needs to be reviewed. We need to at least go back to where this drug was in 2000, requiring an in-person visit, requiring, all of the extra protections around it. And certainly, we want the whole thing to be removed at one point. But as I say, there's very little outcomes that have this not ending in the Supreme Court because of what's at stake here. So I do think that if we see even the rollback to 2000, this will end up in court again and then push its way up to the Supreme Court.
Do you think more people are becoming aware of the situation and how we have been lied to, for so many years? The abortion industry across the board, it's ridiculous in terms of what they sold the American people, especially women. Do you think people are beginning to wake up to that?
I do think people are beginning to wake up to that. And I will say this about Robert Kennedy. He has done so much in this MAHA movement, and the women in the MAHA movement have done so much to really say, we need to take an honest look at what's happening here with our drugs, and there is a real in food safety standards and all sorts of other things that affect health. There's a real cultural component to these pieces. Moms who want to shop for foods free of red dye, had to put so much extra money and intentionality into it, and now, based upon what happened yesterday, all ice cream manufacturers are removing food coloring dyes. So I do think that there's a huge cultural component to this, that these shifts, when they happen at the bigger and larger levels, after a significant portion of the population has kind of awoken to the truth, they gain a lot of steam, and I think we're seeing that in the pro-life movement. There is so much momentum, and we see with the defunding of Planned Parenthood, more closures happening. We're really excited about where things are going in that direction. It's actually gaining a really terminal velocity here, and we just need to think creatively about how to advance on some of these new fronts, regarding Mifepristone and the abortion pill and others.
I do think that even though it's only for a year, and we've been talking about this a lot with experts such as yourself and also with Lewis Brown from Christ Medicus, even though it's only for a year, it does make a huge statement. And I think getting the word out about how much money Planned Parenthood has been receiving, compliments of us, as in the taxpayers, that is eye-opening for people. Just that because most people don't even know how much money they get from the government. And they don't even know how much money they make in addition to how much money they get from the government each year. So getting that out there, this whole education effort, Kelsey, I think is so important.
Yeah, let them fund themselves. And even though this provision right now is for 1 year, Catholic Vote is committed to fighting to make this, to extend this. And I will say that, the closures are real. When a 1 year deficit or a 1 year, impact forces them to close an office, that's not going to reopen next year if the funding returns, and we'll be there to fight to make sure that doesn't happen.
I pulled up the report, and we did a story on this when this first came out because it's dated April 28, 2025, and people can find it at eppc.org, Kelsey, in addition to the petitions that you mentioned. But even if you just read the summary notes, that alone is just chilling. As you mentioned, you say nearly 11% of women experience sepsis, infection, hemorrhaging, or other serious adverse events within 45 days following a Mifepristone abortion. The real-world rate of serious adverse effects following the drug is at least 22 times as high as a summary figure of less than 0.5% in clinical trials reported on the drug label. And then they're saying the FDA should further investigate the harm Mifepristone causes to women and based on objective safety criteria, reconsider its approval altogether. And you can go through this summary. It's not that long. And their key findings. This is what I was talking about when we started this segment. This is part of what our Lord is telling us. We have to educate ourselves. We have to open our eyes. We have to realize what the heck has been going on with this abortion industry. It is nothing but lies and politics, and it's utterly disgusting and evil. It's a culture of death all over the place. I just get so upset when I see stories like this. I just can't help it because we've been lied to.
Focus on those numbers. 0.5% of women, they claim. 0.5%. 22 times higher. And then you have to really, in your mind, in your imagination, inform your morality and give it a real big, impetus to do something, because those stories of sepsis and hemorrhaging, you've got to think about the woman on the floor of her bathroom, literally on the edge of something incredibly serious that could lead to death. These are the real stories behind what this data is telling us. And that's what the abortion lobby has hidden. And serious researchers have been raising alarm bells for years. The Charlotte Lozier Institute consistently pointed out that there was no credible scientific study comparing abortion pills to Tylenol. They said that the FDA only looked at death rates, not serious complications like sepsis or hemorrhage. That's how they did their sleight of hand with the data. And the comparison is nonsense. I mean, Tylenol deaths involve overuse or misuse, while abortion drug complications happen under medical supervision.
Right.
So the abortion industry has never answered these points, and they're going to be held accountable.
Well, they haven't had to. They haven't had to because none of the media ask those questions. That's the problem. That's a big part of the problem. The media cover for them just like they cover for other people on the left in the culture of death. And they should be doing their homework with this kind of thing. They should be all over this if they're so concerned, about women and women's rights. There's another section that's really important, and we touched on this briefly, Kelsey, in this report from the Ethics and Public Policy Center, the increasing market share of chemical abortion. That's a huge part of it. I mean, you mentioned politics, but I think they're pretty close together here because they know that they can make a lot of money with this thing without a lot of work. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, it's 63% of abortions right now. 63%. 63%. So follow the money and take a look at what's happening here. I think that the abortion industry is going to have a very hard time refuting this. The study actually, the sample size was 865,000 persons. And this is recent data, too, Teresa. It's 2017 to 2023. So, this is not the abortion pill from 20 years ago data that they studied. Right. This is very recent. This is going to be very hard to refute. And Kelsey, thank you. We're out of time, but I can't thank you enough. Give us your website real quick, hon, so people can check out the great work at Catholic Vote. Yes, CatholicVote.org, and sign up for our daily newsletter, The Loop, to stay informed on all things politics and Catholicism. God bless. We'll be right back. Coming to you from the beautiful state of Virginia, across the river, of course, from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., where we've been all week long celebrating EWTN Catholic Radio. Hope you've enjoyed our programs. And stay tuned because there'll be more special programming coming up all day long, live from the radio conference. It's a great day. Great to see everyone. And if you just want to see what we're doing, you just check out the EWTN Radio Conference schedule. Just Google EWTN Radio Conference. It'll come up. And also want to remind you, family and friends, because you are family, amici, la familia, as we would say in Italian, we have the family celebration coming up this weekend, and that is amazing. Unfortunately, I have to head out after the show tomorrow morning because Deacon Dom and I are, speaking of La Familia, heading back to Italy on Saturday. But I do want to remind you that this will be recorded. Now, Doug mentioned this last week on my program that they are going to be recording the entire family celebration, as they always do, and the great talks and presentations will be aired at a later date, and they'll also be available online. So keep that in mind. And again, as I mentioned, we are wrapping up the radio conference today. It began on Tuesday with a beautiful reception. I forgot to mention that, from our friends at Catholic Answers and the wonderful Guadalupe Radio Network. And then wrapping up tonight with our banquet. So we look forward to joining you again tomorrow, and then I'll be heading back to Michigan for a short period of time, and then on another plane, and then back to the motherland. And don't forget, as Father Mitch still says, and as Mother Angelica always told us, keep us between your gas and electric bill. The affiliates of the network work very closely together to bring you Catholic Radio 24/7 and online as well. Talk to you tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.